Who are you living your life for? Now, I want you to imagine that you got every single thing you wanted from the career, the salary, the titles, the degrees, the accolades. And then one day you woke up and you realized that instead of living out your own dream, you were living out someone else's. So as a high performer, we have to ask ourselves the question, who are we living our lives for? Because this is a question that I think so many people often ignore until it's too late. So in this video, we're going to talk about it. One of the interesting things about life is you'll come to realize that you are a byproduct of so many different things. The influence from your parents, your culture, your community, the things you heard on media and television, friends, family, teachers, and all of these over time form your belief systems, what you think is right from wrong, how you view the world, and how you actually show up in the world. But at the same time, a lot of these pressures will also force you down a particular path. And you'll see it time and time again that so many people don't really end up choosing their path. They actually end up just drifting into a particular path and then sticking with it for many years to come. I have a crazy story about this. So when I was in university, I knew this guy and he was very, very intelligent. So intelligent to the point where this guy would easily clear 100% in some of his courses, which is very uncommon, especially in tough university programs. And he was doing all this consistently. And I remember one day that him and I were talking because he was in basically a science related program. And I asked him what did you want to do with your life? And he told me that his lifelong dream was always to be a computer programmer. He loves computer programs. He loves everything about software, coding, and documenting. But the current degree that he was under actually didn't have any connection to computer or softwares. And I found that quite interesting because on one hand, he was so obsessed with this one thing, but he was doing so well in another different study or field. And I asked him, why don't you just take a computer science class or an engineering class? And he told me that he had to become a doctor for his parents' approval. And I remember that story being quite interesting in a weird way because he was quite intelligent and he actually had the skills and the grades to actually make it through a doctorate program, but he really didn't want to go down that path. And I even thought about the long-term implications of that, where if he's stepping into a career path for the approval of others, he'll come to realize one day that all of this was for nothing. It was for the approval of someone else. And I'm going to talk to you about why that is such a dangerous trap that a lot of people don't really notice that they're doing with themselves. I know, like I said before, as humans, we're coming from all these different influences, like I said, from society, your culture, your family, your friends, your parents, and they're sort of forming your beliefs on what you think is right or wrong. And oftentimes we don't really challenge these beliefs because we kind of just think to ourselves, hey, let's just go down that particular path. So going back to this guy, he actually got to the point where this guy was successful and he actually got into medical school and he's on the route to becoming a doctor today. But every time I see him, he still tells me all the time that he's still fully committed and he really wants to pursue this engineering path. Now, I don't know what his story is going to be like. I don't know if he goes through and becomes a doctor and does some computer programming on the side. I don't know if he quits halfway through, but needless to say, I could tell, and especially through the conversation that him and I were both having, that his heart wasn't truly in it. And we could talk about all the long-term implications of that. Like he could be a doctor who isn't really happy. He's not really motivated. I mean, I'm sure you've ran into some of these doctors, but really what I want to get from this story is he's living his life for the approval of his family. This can come at a really risky cost. And I know that this is a tough topic because some people are a part of families, households, immigrant households, where they feel like they have to make something of themselves to impress a certain group of people, either mom and dad, cousin, uncle. But this is a really dangerous trap, and I'll talk about this in more depth, but essentially you'll realize that you can't really live your life for someone else. The crazy thing about people is that they're very quick to change their mind, quick to change their opinions. And the story that I outlined isn't so much about becoming a doctor or anything like that. It's more so about life. So there's so many people that try to pursue a particular path that doesn't align with who they want to be, but they're doing it again for someone else's approval. And that's why I truly believe that you have to ask yourself the question, are you going down this particular path to make someone else happy? Are you going down it for their validation? Are you going down this path for their respect? Or internally, is this the path that you actually want to pursue? And these are questions that I actually had to ask myself. Like when I was in university, I noticed that there were so many people, so many students that were just gunning for this two paths, either become a doctor or do research. And for me, I really want to challenge that belief. I really want to see if that was a path that I actually wanted in my heart of hearts, or was I just following this trend just to make other people happy? Luckily for me, I wasn't in an environment where I was forced to do one particular path. I've been encouraged to do and look in different paths, but ultimately I've always had autonomy over that choice. And I think for me, that has given me a lot of time to actually critically reflect on where my talents would be best suited, what vehicle I think I can actually dive in, and what vehicle would actually give me the inspiration and the fulfillment long term that I'm looking for, especially when we look down these lines of careers. And like I said before, living for someone else's approval is a trap. And I'll tell you why it is. Number one, people are very focused on their own lives. So you might think, okay, if I get these titles, if I get these accolades, if I finally hit that career that one person wants, to get that one person's respect, they're probably going to be moving on with their lives. They're going to be thinking about their own issues, their own problems. And all that time you spent trying to get someone else's approval. And you're also going to have this form of resentment towards that person because you're going to question whether you actually really want to go down this particular path or this route, or was was this more so just make someone else happy? Another thing that I want to remind you is that chasing someone else's approval really has no finish line, meaning that you can chase someone's approval for one particular thing, and then they might have another list of objectives that they want you to hit. And then this becomes this never-ending hamster wheel. It's not like you chase someone's approval, you finally get it, and now they're happy. Instead, you can chase someone's approval, they realize, oh, okay, he did this or she did that. Now let's see if they do something else. And I want you to be smart about this process, right? Like, I'm not telling you to like just completely jump ship and throw in the towel with whatever you're doing. But what I am really encouraging a lot of my high performers is really just to assess the path that you're currently going down. Is this a path that you're actually proud of? Is this a path that you're striving towards and the direction you want to follow in? Or is this a path to make someone else happy? And it's honestly such a blessing once you can, one, get to this realization, but two, learn to live authentically. So for example, when I think about this channel, I know that not many people think about this high performance stuff, living your life to the fullest, really trying to level up at self-improvement, really nerd about these like nitty gritty systems. Like, I love this stuff, but I'm being authentic to what I truly enjoy. I'm not worried about someone else's approval on how I'm going to be perceived or judged. Like, those days are long gone and long over. And I believe it's going to show in long-term consistency with the direction I'm going with this channel. I believe it's going to show in the habits that I implement and the lifestyle choices that I do on a consistent basis. I believe it's going to show as I continue to coach and mentor and inspire others to do the same. All that stem from me actually really critically analyzing, okay, what life did I want to live? What sort of things would give me fulfillment? What sort of things could actually be the reason why I'm able to generate a life and a lifestyle that is sufficient for myself, for my family, and long beyond? And those are critical questions that you have to have. I also want you to remember that this game of life, right, if you play it correctly, it's typically a long game. So you don't want to just simply pick something that is short-sighted just to make someone else happy and then realize, it's a dead end or it's not suitable for the person that you want to become. If you pick something, if you learn how to get better at it, if you learn how to actually improve your skills, you can actually cover more ground and therefore, one, find more fulfillment, but two, grow into the best version of yourself. And I know a lot of you who are watching this video right now, you're probably thinking of a few people who you might have been living your life for their approval, to make them happy. And what I want you to do is, like I said before, you're not going to just completely ignore their advice. You're not going to completely throw in the towel, but you have to really listen. And at the same time, you really have to ask yourself, what sort of life do I want to live? A lot of people haven't done this activity that I always recommend people doing. And I call it like the dream lifestyle routine, where if you can incorporate work, what you love to do, into a complete day or a week, what would that look like? In this vision, there is no limits. I mean, whatever you think is possible, you can be completely open and transparent into that and to incorporate that into your dream lifestyle routine. And if you're able to get really clear on what that looks like for you, and you don't feel like you're living in alignment to what that person is or becoming that person, then that's when I would say you're probably not living authentically to the person that you want to become. I've mentioned this a few times on this channel before, but I've methodically and meticulously studied very successful high performers across different industries, different skill sets. And one thing that has always remained true is that a lot of the things that they've worked towards, especially these massive grandiose visions and these successes that they've had, they've typically have been planned, meaning that when you see somebody in elite physical shape, who has strong muscles, has strong vasculature, has a six-pack, I want you to understand that none of that was by accident. This was tracking their macronutrients. This was dieting. This was training with intense sets and reps. This was actually probably tracking their workouts as well and doing it for a consistent basis over and over again. So when you take that same approach for the life and the lifestyle that you want to create, you have to understand that you have to plan it methodically. Like, for example, I've met a ton of entrepreneurs. I've met a few entrepreneurs that sold their company for multi-9 figures, right? And 9 figures is over $100 million. And when I've asked them, when they look back in retrospect of what they built, not a single one of them did it by accident. You're not going to stumble on success by accident. A lot of these stories that people want to sort of portray to you, they will make it seem like they sort of did it by accident. But in reality, there was a lot of planning in place. And that's what I want to say. When we think as high performers to the lifestyle we want to live, to the aspirations that we want to have, we have to, one, ask ourselves, what is it that we want to create? And two, is it authentic to the person that I want to become? The best part about living authentically with the life that you want to create, you'll be able to accept the good and the bad days. No matter what path you choose, no matter what path you plan to pursue, there's going to be amazing days and there's going to be days where it is extremely difficult, where you feel like giving up. But when you feel in alignment to the person that you're building, to the person that you want to become, you know that this is the best path forward. So for example, when I think of myself and I'm doing certain objectives in the gym, when I'm doing certain objectives with content, when I'm working on work for my career and aspirations that I have, even on the days where it's not going well, even on the days where things feel slow, even on the days where it doesn't feel like I'm making much progress, I'm proud because I know that I'm living authentically to the person that I want to be. So I'm already on the right track, and it's only a matter of time before the engine starts kicking off and we start moving in the right direction. And I also want to stress that as a high performer, your path can change. So a lot of times you might have this one particular vision or this idea of a life that you thought you wanted to live, and you end up accomplishing it, and then you realize that that's not actually what you wanted, and you end up deciding to reroute and change that. And that's totally okay, but the only way that you're going to get to that decision and understand whether it makes sense to change your path or adjust is that if you follow through with the authentic living that you've always wanted to do, if you can live authentically to who you want to be. So even if you pursue a path and you thought it was the path that you actually want to pursue, but then it turns out that it wasn't really the thing that you wanted, at least you had the data and you had the insights to know, okay, I actually tried with this path and it didn't work out. So now we can pivot. I think you'll sleep a lot more comfortably at night knowing that at least you tried, versus the contrary, knowing that you've never tried, you never gave it your best effort, and you'll always have that question in your back of your mind, like, what if? What if I went with this path? What if I gave it an actual try? What if it actually worked out? And that's another reality that so many people face. Like, I'm not saying pick this one path and never change. No, you can pick a path. It can be the wrong path, but at least you had the data and the insights to actually try it and figure out what you like and what you didn't like as well. And personally, one of the best traits I've noticed across many high performers is that they have to have this sense of just being a little stubborn, because once you've identified what path you want to pursue, how you want to live authentically for your own life, for your own approval, not for someone else's, not for what society said is good, but for your own life, you then have to be stubborn enough to stick with that path. Because what's going to happen is society is going to try to convince you to follow a particular box or stay in this particular category or be comfortable with the life that you currently have. Don't aspire for anything bigger. You should be grateful for everything you already have. But you'll realize if you have this sense of stubbornness, like, no, I actually want to strive for more. No, I actually have a bigger vision for what I'm trying to create. That sense of stubbornness is going to allow you to really take in all the stuff that society will pour in, but learn how to, what I like to say, bring things that are like garbage in and then garbage out, and just really expel that garbage that doesn't serve you. And I've noticed this with some of the best high performers when they get really clear on what they want, and they're not going to be persuade or see a new shiny object and completely change their path. They're going to stay committed to it long term enough to see the fruits of their labor and see it through. And I really think that's one of the hardest parts, because like I said before, society, your culture, the media, they're going to try to push you down all these paths. One of my favorite quotes is, if you don't have a plan, you'll be a resource in someone else's plan. And the reason why that quote is so powerful is because you can look at your life right now and ask yourself, are you a resource in someone's plan, or are you actually building out your own plan? And sometimes, don't get me wrong, you might have to be a resource in someone's plan. For example, I've worked a ton of different jobs where, the CEO or the founder of the company was really driving their vision forward, and I was just a resource on that pursuit. But at the same time, I've looked critically and I've really assessed, okay, how do I want to build out my own vision? How do I want to build out my own aspirations, my own goals, my own dreams? And you're actively seeing me document that process and doing that as we speak. I can't stress this enough as a high performer. This is going to be how you're able to show up over the long term, over decades, to really excel and become the best that you possibly can be in whatever you decide to do. And it starts with when you're actually doing it for the authentic version of yourself. I'm so inspired by so many people who live authentically for themselves. I remember I met this gentleman, I won't say who. He drives a lot of nice vehicles, and he has this one vehicle. It's an old European car, and to the common person, it wouldn't look very impressive. And I sort of asked him, I was like, oh, you like that car? Aren't you worried that like what people might think about and what they might say? Because I really want to get his response. And he literally looked at me and he says, I couldn't care less what other people think about that car or what other people think about those thoughts. Typically, a lot of people who watch my videos, you're typically between the ages of like 18 to 25. Some of you might be a little bit older. Some of you might be a little bit younger, but you'll come to realize that you'll reach a maturity level. Let's say it's in your late 50s, your late 60s, some of you in the 40s, where you'll realize that you won't care about the opinions of other people. And what I mean by that, it's not so much that you won't care about the opinions of other people, of what they say, but more so you won't look to others for their approval. A lot of people between the age ranges of a lot of the high performers that I talk with, they're still in that phase where they actually truly care about other people's opinions, thoughts, and perceptions of themselves. And I will say that I've also experienced that many, many times. I've also thought to myself, oh, I had to do certain things for the approval of other people, or because it's the common norm to do it this way, I'll decide to go that way as well. But if you know you're going to reach an age where one day you'll look up and you'll say, none of it mattered, the approval of other people didn't matter, why not start thinking about that early so that you can live authentically to yourself? I think it's really important to ask yourself, who are you afraid of disappointing? If you can get clear on who that is, who that avatar is, it might be a mom, it might be a friend, it might be a loved one. You also have to ask yourself, who are you trying to impress? Whose approval are you trying to seek? And then finally, once you understand all those things, you have to ask yourself, if nobody judged your decisions, how would you go and live out your life? And that's the dream life routine that I was talking about earlier. The last thing I really want to hone in is that most people in your life want to keep you within this comfortable box. They might know you as the person who was really good at X, Y, and Z, whether it's a particular sport, whether you worked a certain career. They want to keep you in that mind frame. So oftentimes when I see people, they'll ask me, hey, are you still doing this thing? Are you still doing that thing? And to them, they just want to ensure that you're still within the box that they set out for yourself. Like, oh, he's the guy who's the electrician, or he's the guy who loved basketball, or he's the guy who's working on music, or he's the guy who works at the post office. When we can put people into certain categories and certain boxes, it makes us feel comfortable as humans because you sort of have places to put everyone. But if you're a high performer, if you're watching videos like this, like your identity will change. You will grow into new spaces, new heights. And that's why it's so dangerous to try to live for someone else's approval, because people want you to be comfortable. There's very few people in this life that want you to become better than them. And if you find someone like that, that is rare. Most people want you to stay comfortable. They want to know you for what they've always known you as. And again, they want you to fit into that particular box because it makes them feel comfortable. There's a very rare case where people want you to strive beyond what they think is possible for you. You know, that's why you'll see, I mean, I shared this on my Instagram one time when I was playing soccer and our coach would make us run laps around the field. I was always extremely fast and we would run in groups. Like if you know anything about soccer, like different fitness levels will show over time. So as we're running, the people with elite fitness will typically be at the front of the pack and the people who can't keep up will be at the back. And I remember I was getting to the point where I was going really quickly and one of my teammates at the time was like, yo, Miles, slow down, you know, or coach is going to make us run laps. And I didn't want to be the teammate that made the coach run more laps. So I used to stay with the pack and run slower. And I remember my coach one time, he actually noticed that and he stopped us during the run and when we were taking a break grabbing water, he had asked me like, why did you slow up? And I just told him, oh, you know, coach, I didn't want to make other people run more. And my coach would be like in this deep voice and say like, no, you don't slow down so other people can catch up to you. You speed up and they're supposed to catch up to you. And that's the same thing that I want to say with this whole approval concept. Don't get caught into that trap of trying to live into someone else's box, something else that they've always known you to be comfortable as. Like, again, you can strive to be bigger. You can strive for more in this life. And that's typically what I've always preached across this channel. As I wrap up this video, I want you to remember that people won't have to live with the consequences of your decisions. The only person that's going to live with the consequences of your decisions is you. So that's why you have to be very critical and assess, are you living for yourself or are you living for someone else? Do you have a bigger purpose for why you're doing the things that you do, or is it for someone else's approval? And if you fall into that box of making it for someone else's approval, you're going to realize sooner or later that that has been a complete trap and a complete waste of your life. I always remind you guys that one thing that you will not be able to get back in this lifetime is time. Time is always ticking. Time ticks so fast. I'm sure you all remember when you were young, you were kids, you were fooling around, having fun. Now you look up, you know, life is progressing and it's only going quicker. Time isn't stopping for anybody. So why not live authentically for yourself so that you can actually have the long term, the longevity, the actual fulfillment in whatever you decide to pursue. As always, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching, hit the first link in my description. And I can see if you're a good fit for the program because we can work through actually ensuring that the path that you're setting out for yourself is in alignment to the person that you want to become. It leverages your skill sets. It's allowing you to think bigger and better and actually creating systems to make those goals a reality. On top of that, if you guys are interested in being a part of the waitlist for my high performance community, I have a waitlist down below, so check that out. And as always, you know what I always say, make sure to always believe that you will achieve. My name is Miles, aka Mr. High Performance, and I am signing off. Woo!